Hello, everybody. Here's Natasha from the Feminine Space podcast, and welcome to the 10th episode of the Surrendering series. And today we have the wonderful, wonderful guest, Stephanie Johnston. She is a psychotherapist, artist, and mom from Little Rock, Arkansas. And she wears so many hats that I really wish I could just concentrate it in two sentences. But this wonderful sister is not only has she not only created her own healing art studio, a space for women to connect, and she's also having her private practice along the side, starting her family, and she's also teaching at the University of Arkansas. There's much, much more, and you can find out, throughout this episode, throughout this interview, and also at the very end when she shares exactly how you can get in touch with her. But welcome, Stephanie, and I can't wait to dive into your story for everyone to hear.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
So it sounds like right now in a place where, your plate is quite full, both in your personal life and in your light work. Like I like to call people like you and me light workers. So I can imagine that, in order to share or to hold a space for women for healing, or to do the practice that you do, or to teach what you teach, you probably must have had your personal experience in order to understand what it is that other people are going through and how you can also help them through different stages of life. So would you like to share a little bit of how your path has led you to where you are now?
Sure, absolutely. It's been it's been about a year now that this whole process has been started. I've been a psychotherapist for, gosh, probably 8 years. But in the past year, with all of the political, and I think we were talking earlier, you're originally from Canada, right? Yeah. So I'm sure obviously the whole world is watching the US politics. And so the political landscape that kind of started last year really kicked off in me this, I just got to the point where I wasn't interested in staying with the status quo and doing the 9 to 5 forever. And so I work at the VA with veterans, and I have been doing that full time, and I love it. But I was just ready to do something that focused a little bit more on women and was a little bit more empowering and kind of flexible. We're also starting our family. So I've got a 22-month-old now, our daughter Hazel, and then we just had our daughter Isabel, who's 8 weeks now. So I just wanted more flexibility with them. I wanted to focus more on the arts and women in particular, and kind of have more of an activist, um, outlet. And so I started the Healing Arts Studio. And it's taken a whole year to get it off the ground, but it is the space for us to gather. And especially as a mom, I feel like we don't have our tribe anymore. So kind of find your tribe is one of my things that I really am underlining. We need to gather together to support each other and to learn and to kind of recreate that thing that we're missing from society. Like, we're so alone and so isolated. And so I really wanted this space to be a place for us to just gather and drink coffee and do art and have therapy and have support groups and, this whole central gathering place. And so we just had our grand opening on the 8th and are really getting started with programming this month. So it's very exciting.
Wow, congratulations. That's recent and that's amazing. My goodness, you really have so much going on both with the newborn you have and also this project. So I want to ask you something, because ideas lots of people have. I want to write a book, or I want to create a center, I want to change my career. People have these ideas, or maybe sometimes they even talk about them to other people. But for you to begin taking action on what you thought was missing in your life or in the world,
Mm-hmm.
was that natural to you? How was that process?
I mean, it is terrifying to a degree because I left a very steady, great job that I actually loved. It's not like I was miserable in my job full time at the VA, and I stay there. I'm still there part time because I really do love those clients that I work with at the VA. So it was really scary to leave the security of that and the stability of that, and a lot of people thought that I was just crazy, to let go of something that was so secure, basically. but I think the reward is worth the risk. I mean, it is risky and it could, not work as well as what I had. But, I mean, sometimes people talk about how you finally change when you're just too uncomfortable to stay the same. And it was just the point where the reward of connecting with other women and giving them a place is worth the risk for me. And I think, people in the younger generation, staying in one job forever just doesn't, I mean, that's kind of a 1930s kind of, or 50s, or, I mean, that's an old way of working. Now it's way more normal to kind of move from job to job and let the job transition as you kind of grow and change. And so I was just at a point where it was natural for that to happen. Scary, but natural.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, because when we start something new, it's new for a reason. That means it's something we've never done before. And like you, there is a big leap of faith. There needs to be trust that what you feel, it is correct, right? So it sounds like when you identified the fact that, okay, this is happening within my country or within the political atmosphere, I feel like connection is missing. I feel like support is missing. I feel like healing is missing. Can you describe to me a little bit about that bridge? Because here you are, you have a vision between in your mind, like, or in your heart, saying, okay, I want that for myself. I want this for people around me or for my community. And then maybe there's a part of yourself that looks around you saying, that's not here. I have to create it. And I have to trust that it can provide for me and it can actually be realized in a successful way. So with that vision and with that, as you say, that scary feeling, how did you tackle that? How did you not let the fear stop you, let's say?
Gosh, that's a good question. I mean, as a psychotherapist, I kind of come from maybe like a Jungian kind of background, or like an existential humanistic kind of background. And also, I have a degree in art, and so art is a huge part of my life. And like when you're creating art, you do what feels right. And so intuition is just a huge part of me and how I work, like in therapy. I follow what feels. I mean, I think that I have a pretty good intuitive grasp and a trust in my intuition. And so I think that gives me a little bit more confidence to trust the universe or my choices, or the way things feel, um, because I don't work just on my brain. Because logically, there's not an answer. I mean, it is very risky logically, but trusting in that intuitive kind of feminine, I don't know, power, there's words that just can't really be placed on it. But I think I just trusted in the feeling of it. And so far it's led me, in really good directions. And I also, logically thought, what is the worst that could happen? If all of this doesn't work out, if this is you know, I can always go back to a 9 to 5 job. There are 9 to 5 jobs out there that I can always go back to. So if worst case scenario, it would, be really difficult and hard, but worst case scenario, like, I can manage it. And so again, like, the rewards of really having a place for women to come together, and a place for myself to connect with other people, and a place to do art, and a place to be creative, it's just, I put those two different things on the teeter-totter, and the weight of the one just totally outweighed the other.
Yeah. It sounds like you really have that perspective, the perspective of, what am I actually trying to create? And the fears I have, can I just resolve them at some point? Is it something so impossible that I can't tackle? Or is it as simple as, okay, if it doesn't work out, or if things take longer than I anticipate, am I able to have other solutions? Like, am I able to just adjust somehow to create what I need, right? And I think it's interesting, because sometimes when we want to make a big change, or we're looking at, like, whoa, how do I do all of this? How do I figure it all out? It feels like we have an infinite amount of answers to find within ourselves, when really sometimes it's like, oh, that is the actual answer. And everything else is just a lot of thinking about that difficult question.
Well, luckily, I've been through, 10 years of training to become a therapist. And so I also know how to kind of notice and manage anxiety. So again, like it really has been terrifying. Like there's a ton of anxiety that has been in me throughout this whole process. But luckily, I've gone through a ton of training and, my own therapy to notice, okay, here I am. This is anxiety. I can just flow with it and notice it and not let it stop me. I think if I wasn't being conscious of it, it would have stopped me a long time ago. But I'm willing to accept that anxiety and that uncertainty to follow my values and my dreams, and it's a price that I'm willing to pay. And I think just getting out of my own way and having the anxiety kind of get out of the way has been just a huge part of that process of just kind of accepting it and letting it go and continuing to move towards that value of connection. Really is what the main value is.
You bring a really great point, because sometimes I think people think about therapy or healing or self-development work. It's like, oh, I'm doing that so I can get over the past. I'm doing that so I can heal from this, But what you're saying, and which I really believe is the true essence of like being our true self and like feeling that wholeness again, is letting that shape us now, letting that shape our future. It's not about, oh, when I have more awareness, that helps me to deal with the past, but coming together again now can make whatever dream you have that much easier to actually manifest and to create.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah, and acceptance and commitment therapy, which is one of the class that I'm stepping in for my old teacher to kind of take over for him this semester. But acceptance and commitment therapy really brings that idea of just bringing it with you. You don't have to wait until all the anxiety is gone before you move. And if you do, you'll be waiting a really long time. It's really hard to get rid of anxiety. And anxiety is just something that your brain creates. And so, or your body, and based on your past, based on whatever. And so if you really have logically kind of figured out that there's not a valid risk, then take the anxiety with you. Let yourself be anxious as you make that public speech, or as you choose a new business venture, or you start a new relationship. You don't have to wait until anxiety leaves the picture before you start working towards your values.
Yeah, I can't imagine, because sometimes we do wait for that permission, whether it's from other people or it's for the feeling within us to be just 100% confident, or for everything to fall into place on the outside. And I find that kind of funny when people kind of try to sell or portray, oh, do this and you'll be 100% confident, but we never really are, because we are never really in control anyways. So even if we
comfort with uncertainty, is the huge point.
So it's good to hear again and again that in order to create change or to even do something about your life, you don't need to be 100% sure. You don't need to be 100% confident. You don't need to know 100% what you need to do exactly. It's quite funny, isn't it?
And if you can just clarify the values, clarify the general direction that you want to go in. So, love is a guiding direction, or working towards health or peace, or, just these kind of broader general pictures. And so then you can kind of use that as a litmus test of, is what I'm doing fitting with that? Am I going in a direction of love, or am I going in a direction of kindness, or whatever your value may be? And that can kind of help you answer the question of whether you should be doing it or not. And so as long as I'm continuing to ease suffering and bring in creativity into the world and bring in love and kindness and peace, I think you can't really go wrong with that, right? As long as you're going in that direction, then you really don't have to have all the answers.
That's really beautiful. I have one last question for you, because a lot of people or women struggle with, okay, I know this is where I am right now, but who do I want to be? Who do I want to become? What do I want to do? That is still relatively unclear. that your next step or this direction or this new career, was it, how did that come about? How did the clarity, I guess, crystallize for you? Was it just a thought? Was it a feeling that then was multiple steps until you actually had the idea, this is what I want to create. This is my next step or my purpose even?
I mean, I think that it was always a distant point that I wanted to have more flexibility in my life, that I wanted to have more art in my life, that I wanted to connect more with moms. I think it came about because I had, 10 different desires and needs kind of going on at the same time. And in the back of my head, that was an eventual kind of, when I retire, maybe I'll do more art. But again, like the real catalyst was just all of the political kind of social upheaval over the past year. And it really kind of woke me up to, oh, this needs to happen now. Like, there's no reason to wait for 30 years to really kind of put this stuff into play. So really just the suffering that I saw in the world and myself, and just, I mean, I think that really woke it up. And I mean, and again, I guess it was more of like an intuitive kind of subconscious stirring and happening that made me realize, well, I'll tell you too, like I was going to just do some private practice in the evenings to kind of get started in that direction, but there was nowhere that I could rent a space by the hour. And I kept running into this roadblock of, I don't want a full office, I just want an hour. And I couldn't find it. So then I thought, well, heck, I guess I'll just make my own space. And so I rented a whole building and quit half my job and kind of really jumped all the way into it. I was just going to do an hour a day, and now I'm doing, 4 days a week. But yeah, I guess it was just the obstacles and the suffering that kind of pushed me over the edge to really make the change.
This is a theme that is really interesting, because whether it's a circumstance that pushes you out of your current comfort zone, or you see something on the outside and you just can't handle it, but to just do something about it. Like, beautiful things doesn't have to come from other beautiful, perfect beginnings, and it's really great to hear, because sometimes when people are like feeling like they're at their lowest low, they're like, this is it, this is going to be forever. But to hear your story of transitioning from that pain or that suffering from the outside, like, wow, I'm witnessing this, I'm feeling the pain, and then going so empowered, I can do something about this, and actually taking the action steps to make that happen, no matter what's going on in your life. Pregnancy, newborn, family, quitting a job, not quitting, but reducing your job. Those are big, courageous steps.
But yeah, I mean, that's a huge point, of that, you're never going to change if you're comfortable, if you're complacent and you're comfortable. So really kind of looking at the discomforts and, when the shoe grows too tight, you've kind of got to get out of it. And I'm Buddhist too, and so that's kind of a huge wellspring for me, or a source that I kind of come out of. And there's a saying there of, the lotus can't grow without the mud. The mud is a huge component of it. And in acceptance and commitment therapy, there's this idea that the anxiety, the depression, the political upheaval is the storm. I mean, the storm, but you're the sky. You're bigger than that. The sun is shining. And so really taking these perspectives of kind of appreciating, which it's easier to say when you're out of the storm, but appreciating the pain and the discomfort, because it helps you move on and transition and grow. And you really wouldn't if you were just warm and fuzzy and comfortable all the time.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing this phase. And I mean, it sounds like it's just the beginning of many things. And
we've collaborated with some really great women, and I mean, it's really kind of coming together to be a place where we can all just kind of come and get connected. So I'm really excited about it.
oh, thank you for listening to that feeling and then carrying it out and bringing the people together to all benefit from that. How can the audience get in touch with you, or even hear more about your healing art studio?
Sure. The website is the Studio LR for Little Rock, the Studio LR.space. My email is stephanie@thestudioLR.space. You can find us on Facebook. The full name is the Healing Arts Studio, but we just call it the studio. So if you search for either one of those, so really Facebook, the website, my phone number is plastered all over the place. So I'm more than happy to text with people or email or call. If you're in Central Arkansas, you can come. But I'm also doing teletherapy and kind of some life coaching stuff. When our daughter was born, she had a heart condition. And so that really made me realize, too, of the need that people have while they're in the hospital. So I'm focusing on all of women's issues, but a portion of that is going to be like this Skype therapy, teletherapy for people that can't come into the office. So like postpartum depression or just postpartum support, women can kind of just Skype in and get some support, or parents that are in the hospital. So all of those options are there, and I'm more than happy to talk to anybody about it. And also, if other people want to come and use the space, because again, I'm teaching or I'm at the VA half the time, I really want it to be just a space for other people to use too. So that's an option as well.
Stephanie, I really do hope the audience reaches out to you. And I just find it so beautiful how you keep mentioning the word space. And like I'm in my own mind creating that same, I guess, virtual space in this sense for women. Because I think we all just want to be held. That seed, that seed has the whole roadmap of everything that we will become, the whole capacity that or the potential that we will have like over time. And as we age, it's amazing. And to know that you're holding physical space for your ladies over there, I'm here holding space for women all over the world.
Like, yeah, this is an international connection. And following that intuition, like I was saying, like some amazing, beautiful connections happen. Like we got connected randomly. I randomly got connected with an amazing birth photographer, Brittany with Wandering Oaks Photography. And she photographed our birth of Izzy. Then a doula agency, Arkansas Family Doulas with Sandra Rodacker. So they're kind of using the space, and these weird, like little miraculous kind of accidents keep happening when you get out of the way and let them happen. So I really believe that as miserable and dark of a time that we're in history, I believe that this whole feminine, I don't know, happening is going on, and we are really kind of connecting and supporting each other and getting out of that whole patriarchal kind of misery that kind of has gotten things a little bit twisted. So it's really hard and difficult right now, but it's also really beautiful and lovely and inspiring.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for everything you're doing, for the stories that you have shared. I actually, every time I do an interview, I'm like, oh my goodness, this could go on for hours. We need our pot of tea that's endless, and we can go on and on and on. And the amazing thing is we're talking about our life until like today, this moment. So who knows what tomorrow brings or the year after. It's unbelievable. So thank you so much.
On like a quarterly basis or something, and we'll keep checking back in on our progress of changing the world.
Absolutely. That's a really good point. I haven't implemented that in my podcast, but it'll be really interesting, especially to see, because some people are quite established in their practice. They've been doing it maybe for like years and they feel very good in what they're doing. Doesn't seem like a new project's going to come along. But for you, it'd be really interesting to see, well, what happens next when you really trust.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I will get in touch with you, or the audience. Please let me know if I should do that. So thanks again, Stephanie, and everybody for all the contact information that Stephanie just shared. If you want to get it all in a bundle, just so you don't have to, scroll back or search what exactly Stephanie said, you can head over to femininespace.com/Stephanie Johnston. So I'll spell everything out for you. That's Stephanie, StephanieJohnston. So you can head over to the show notes. Over there you can find her website, the contact information, and a bit more details about herself. And you can find the best way that you can get in touch with her and find out more about Stephanie there. So that's Stephanie with a PH and Johnston. So hopefully you can get access to that. So thanks everybody for listening, and I'll talk to you next week. And Stephanie, thanks so much for coming on again.
Thank you so much. It's been lovely.
Oh, thanks. All right. Bye, everybody.